Welcome to episode 117 of the Charm City Birdwatch podcast. I'm your host, Nolan McGraw. I'm flying solo again this week. Just not how we wanted to do it, but it's how we have to do it. More of a timing issue this week than a technology issue. So that's a good thing, I guess. We didn't have any technical difficulties this week. So far, at least. I had just now started, so anything could happen, I guess. And instead of skipping a whole week altogether, I said, you know what, I'll sit down, I'll bang out an episode, see how long it is, and we'll put something out because I feel bad not putting anything out. It's been a pretty busy week, to say the least. A lot going on in the sports world. I don't know if we'll get to all of it. I'm just one person, so I don't know if I'll have the time to get to all of it, but I definitely have to clean up some stuff right off the bat with this whole Earl Thomas situation, because it was really funny in hindsight, honestly. Like 24 hours, maybe not even 24 hours after recording last week's episode, the Ravens just went ahead, terminated his contract, and that was Sunday morning. So, we recorded Saturday, and at the time of recording, I mean, you can tell by listening to the episode, we didn't have all the info that we have now. We heard the muttering and people insinuating and reports from, NFL insiders saying that his teammates didn't trust him anymore. They were the ones that wanted him out, this, that, the other thing. There was some insinuation that he was, aloof, non-despondent in team meetings, and as far as practice, we know that what led to that little scuffle with Chuck Clark was the fact that Earl blew the play. So there seemed to be just this growing frustration that, this guy is, how many times has he been a Pro Bowl player? How many times has he been an All-Pro? He's won a Super Bowl. He's been considered the best, if not one of the best players at the safety position of his generation. He's a future Hall of Famer, and he's not getting it. Like, why is he acting like this? And now that we know all this information, I'm asking myself the same thing. I wasn't one of the people that was out here just bashing on Earl since he's been here last year. There was some stuff I didn't care for. If you go back and listen to older episodes, we had this debate all the time, seemingly every time Earl opened his mouth last year. Whether it was, I'm trying to think of all the times he did it. I mean, the most notable one that everyone knows is leading up to the playoff game where he was talking about Derrick Henry. I actually didn't have a problem with that. I thought that was blown way out of proportion. I thought for the most part he was very good on the field. We know that from the jump there were some issues, self-admitted issues, that he came out and said it, that he was having trouble picking up the playbook. And at the time, I thought that was very odd, again, for being a player of his caliber. Sure, he spent his entire career up until that point with one team, only knew one system, and the longer he was there, he became kind of the anchor and the staple guy on that defense. So for him to, pack up and move to another defense, learn a new system, play alongside a whole new set of teammates, there could be growing pains, but you would think for a player of his caliber, he would be able to smooth things out relatively quickly. And I guess to his credit, as the year went on, we didn't really hear of those playbook issues coming up anymore. Now here in 2020, in wake of his release, we're hearing reports that, well, maybe he never got the playbook and he was just sort of freelancing out there, playing his own sort of defense, not really following the scheme, kind of guessing and gambling, and not in a good way. I mean, you have guys that guess and gamble like Marcus Peters, but at the same time, you don't hear, at least since he's been with the Ravens, you haven't heard any sort of gripes from his teammates as far as his work ethic, as far as the way he approaches, the game of football. Everyone seems to love his attitude. There's no one questioning the way he, approaches film study, approaches meetings with the other defensive backs, when he shows up in the morning, when he leaves, stuff like that. So that was also an issue with Earl, and it just all sort of culminated in this big hodgepodge, this big mess. And really, a lot of the stuff that's being said here should not be problems that you're getting from a player that's been in the league this long. And I don't want to insinuate anything, but I will throw this out there, and I just want to preface it by saying this is just sort of me spitballing. This is sort of like a guess. I'm not, saying that you should 100% believe this, but this is a podcast, and I'm just going to throw it out there. Maybe Earl's head is in a different place. And I kind of also say this isn't an excuse at all. He shouldn't have acted this way. Based on everything we know, I can definitely understand why the Ravens moved on. But after what happened this offseason, maybe, and we all said this whole, it's been an insane year, and even more insane for Earl Thomas because of that whole fiasco that happened this offseason. Him supposedly cheating on his wife, his brother's involved. It was a whole big thing. We all know the story. Maybe his head's just not in it, and maybe he's going through some things. Earl seems like the quiet type. Maybe he's not very open to talk about that sort of thing. Maybe the home life is wearing on him a little bit. Is this fair of me to insinuate? Maybe not. I mean no malintent. I mean no maliciousness by saying that, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was true. Now, with that being said, that doesn't excuse what he did, but it could be some added context, I guess. Again, he deserved to get released. Again, if everything we're hearing is true, that his teammates wanted him out, that the coaching staff was obviously fed up with the way he approached stuff, and he had been warned many times. Even going back to last year, they said that they fined him for showing up late, for not being present in meetings. Apparently he missed his exit interview last year, or whatever they do at the end of every season, sit down and meet with each individual player and assess things. Apparently he skipped that. He hasn't always been very forthright with the media. I don't know if that's the biggest issue, but I think that would explain why certain media members seem very happy to jump and dogpile on him. That's just how the media works. They're human, and you're going to get human reactions like that sometimes, whether it's fair or not. I mean, I stand by what I said, that if the Ravens are going to release him, they're going to have a serious hole to fill. That's still true. They don't have anyone in-house that is as good as Earl Thomas as far as the play on the field is concerned. You're not going to find anyone in free agency right now that is as good as Earl Thomas on the field. It's a net negative. There's no other way to spin it. I think that's the words we chose to use last week. But you can also acknowledge that while also saying they had to do it. They had to release him based on everything we know now. The financial aspect sucks. I thought at the time last week that made the move super unlikely. But I think I also said something that if they release Earl Thomas, the situation would have to be really, 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 really bad. And, well, I guess I was right, I guess I was right about one thing, and it turns out the situation was really, really, really bad, and they found it so bad, so detrimental to the team, that they were going to release him, even though it's not the best financial decision, and they kind of are burning themselves from that aspect. And where do you go from here? That's the question. I mean, we know he's not here anymore. They're moving on. We're done with Earl Thomas. Where do you go from here? Because the question is, how do you replace that production on the field? We know DeShon Elliott, drafted in 2018. He's finally going to get his shot. He's going to get his reps in. They're already, we heard reports that his teammates were bigging him up a lot, saying that he should be the one getting more reps. They like playing alongside him. I know Chuck Clark and DeShon himself both had media availability earlier in the week. We're talking about the chemistry that they have just from practicing with each other for the past couple of years. And they're excited to play alongside each other. It sounds like the rest of the defense is excited to have DeShon back there with them. And there's definitely some trust. And think that's all great. I mean, that's what you would expect and want from a football team. But there are still some very obvious concerns surrounding DeShon Elliott, and it's in the injury department because drafted in 2018, hasn't played more than 40 defensive snaps in a season, and that was last year. He missed his entire rookie season in 2018, broke his arm in a preseason game, might have been the Hall of Fame game against the Bears. That I could be wrong about that. If it wasn't that game, it was one of the other preseason games. He was injured right off the bat in preseason. He couldn't even get through preseason, shut down for the rest of the year with a broken arm. Comes back last year, good preseason, good showing. I think we remember talking about him a lot in the preseason because being a backup player, Earl Thomas wasn't going to be out there for much of the preseason. Tony Jefferson was still there. So we saw a lot of Chuck Clark and DeShon Elliott in the preseason last year, and we liked it. We were excited. We get rolling in the regular season. He's out there every once in a while, mostly playing special teams. And I can't remember what game he went down in, but it was one of those plays where you saw it happen and you're like, I don't know. That doesn't look too good. And then I believe it wasn't an obvious injury at the time. He didn't return to the game. And then after the game, we found out, it's serious. It's a knee issue. He's done for the year again. And we're all sitting there saying, oh, my God, here we go again. This guy can't catch a break. 2 years in a row to start your career. I mean, it doesn't get any harder than that. You come into this league with a lot of promise, coming out of Texas, ironically enough, the same school that Earl Thomas went to, and you're being shut down your first 2 years, can't get more than 40 defensive snaps in. That stunts your growth as an NFL player significantly. And, there's nowhere to go but forward from here. You can't change the past. So we're all rooting for him, obviously, but it's just this guy could have more bad luck. And this obviously isn't much of an indictment on DeShon Elliott because look at the injuries, broken arm, the knee injury. Both of them happened in live speed game action. One was preseason, one was regular season, but in an actual organized formal game playing at full speed, these didn't happen, in a workout. These didn't happen on the practice field and Owings Mills. These happened at game speed. So they're freak accidents. It's part of the game of football. It sucks. It's just bad luck. And you hope that his bad luck is out and we can see some more good luck his way because they need him to step up right away. And it's almost, as excited as we are for DeShon Elliott, it's almost unfair kind of the pressure that's being put on him right now because, again, he just doesn't have that NFL. He doesn't have the NFL reps under his belt. We liked him as a player coming out of college. We like the attitude he plays with. We like his style of play. Something that I don't think is talked about enough with him, he's a bit of a ball hawk. He was in college. He could be a turnover generator. And maybe not immediately right off the bat. Maybe his role in 2020, at least for this year where he's stepping into the starter role for the first time, will be to just kind of play solid, play smart, hold things down, rely on Chuck Clark, who's a great defensive mind playing alongside you, rely on the other great guys you have in that secondary, whether it's young talent like Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, or a very savvy vet who's been around the block quite a few times in Jimmy Smith. Rely on those guys, lean on those guys, and learn. And you can tell he's already done a lot of that. He also got the chance to play alongside or, learn a lot from guys like Eric Weddle, Tony Jefferson, and beat up on Eric Weddle a lot on this podcast, but there's no denying his brain is one of the best in the game of football right now as far as a player's brain. You can learn a lot from a guy like Eric Weddle, and I'm sure DeShon Elliott did. So just excited to see him get the chance, but I don't expect him to be just super flashy this year. I just want him to play smart, want him to play solid, fit right in, just be a piece of the machine, so to speak. He doesn't need to feel like he has to go out there and make the play. But moving forward, maybe he can tap into those college tendencies and be a turnover generator. I don't know. And any sort of additional turnover threat you have in the secondary, even better. You already know teams are going to be watching what Marcus Peters is doing. Marlon Humphrey, he's last year, whether he was generating the turnover or not, he was in the right place at the right time. So, if he didn't punch the ball out, he was right there to scoop it up and take it all the way to the house. So you got to keep your eye on him. I'm not concerned about the state of the secondary right now. No concerns whatsoever as a whole, but I think I would like to see somebody else brought in, because besides DeShon Elliott, besides Chuck Clark, your two prospective starters, you got Anthony Levine. You listen to this podcast, we big up Anthony Levine more than anyone. We love him. I've said it time and time again, arguably the most underrated Raven of the last decade. A Swiss Army knife, plays like a combo safety, linebacker role, good against the run. We've seen him come up with some huge plays in pass defense. Had that game-sealing interception against Pittsburgh in 2018. Had two great stops in the final stand against Cleveland in Week 17 that year. We all remember that game. C.J. Mosley with the interception on 4th down ends the game. Everyone goes nuts, but leading up to that 4th down play, Anthony Levine had 2 pass breakups, and I think Jimmy Smith had the other one. So he's smart, great defensive player, but he's not a guy you give starting reps to, and I mean, he would probably admit that. He's also out there on special teams a lot. He's just a great all-around smart guy, a great all-around smart football player. We like the guys we have, but there's not a lot of depth here. That's the point I'm getting at. There's not a lot of depth here. You got Geno Stone. You just drafted him. Can't, make any sweeping expectations with him. It's just a late-round draft pick. Seems like a type of guy that you throw him into the system here. You let him learn from all those great guys you have on the defense. Give him some more seasoning. Give him some reps here and there. Maybe in the regular season he gets some reps here and there, but it'll probably be mostly on special teams. And you just see that maybe he can develop into a good role player in the future. Anything greater than that is a bonus for someone, like him, where he was drafted. Heaven forbid DeShon Elliott, or anyone else for that matter, goes down with an injury. Who do you have? Right now, not much. You just don't have much. So I think it would be advantageous for the Ravens. And again, there isn't much time here. We are, 15 days away? We're coming up here, just a couple days left in this month. It's roughly 2 weeks. 15 days, roughly 2 weeks since before the Ravens play their first game. Yeah, they need to bring someone in, start getting them up to speed as fast as you can. Maybe you don't need them week 1, but if you need them somewhere down the road, that would be advantageous. So I would think the Ravens have their eyes out there. I mean, if this whole Earl Thomas situation has been brewing for a while, which we've heard it has, you would think that DaCosta and company would have had their eyes on the market and maybe not had any formal talks with anyone, but they know the lay of the land. They've got their eyes out there. They know what's going on. They know who's available, who isn't, who's interested, and who might be a good fit for Baltimore. And a lot of this happens all the time. Fans immediately jump to this, but you jump to the familiar face. And there's 2 of them right now, 2 guys that were on the team last year that are now free agents, still don't have a home, somewhat surprisingly, at least in the case of Brandon Carr. Didn't find himself a new job or a new role with another team. Even at his age, I just find that kind of shocking. Very clean, extremely clean injury history. I mean, he's got that insane streak of starts, so he hasn't missed a game in years. He's an Iron Man at this point. So if you got concerns about his age, I mean, just look at the track record. He's got a clean bill of health. He's out there. He suits up every week. I'm just surprised another team didn't scoop him up. And then you got Tony Jefferson, who is coming back from a serious injury. Suffered that in the Pittsburgh game last year, the one at Pittsburgh early in the year. Went down with a very serious injury. He's rehabbing his way back. A tough situation for him because we all like Tony Jefferson as a person. Some people didn't particularly like him as a safety. I thought he was all right. He had some ups and downs here in Baltimore. Put together a really solid year, put together a not-so-great year. Looked like he was off to a sort of okay start last year, but then, you go down with the injury. You just never want to see that. So the Ravens are fortunate they had a guy like Chuck Clark just waiting there to step up and not only fill that gap, but take over and become, wear the green dot in his helmet and be the on-field leader for this defense. That just doesn't happen often. You don't have a guy like that waiting in the wings, ready to take over. So Ravens kind of were very fortunate there, but, it's not luck when you draft that guy. They saw that in Chuck Clark. So they could reconnect with Brandon Carr. They could reconnect with Tony Jefferson. I don't think it's the most likely. I don't know. I don't know if I see Tony Jefferson coming back. I just the style of safety he plays, I don't know if that is the type you just want to throw out there alongside Chuck Clark. I think you want more of a prototypical free safety out there. No offense to Tony Jefferson, but I don't know. And then you also had the injury thing, and we wish him the best. I want to see Tony Jefferson play again, obviously, and it really is unfortunate because he goes down with that injury. He's prospectively at the time, all right, I'm going to rehab, going to come back stronger next year, and now we got this whole offseason has been just completely torn up by the pandemic, and I don't think Tony Jefferson got a fair shake. I mean, he hasn't had the opportunity probably to get to rehab to the fullest, or maybe even if he has, I mean, the attention the teams would have maybe normally given him if these were normal times, normal circumstances, maybe he would get another shot with the team. Maybe he would get like a 2-3 year deal, something like that. You don't know, but he's got nothing right now. If he misses a year, what's that going to do to his value? So I think the Ravens could get him back for cheap. I think he would definitely – I think he would be a candidate to come in here on like a 1-year deal. Same with Brandon Carr. Both those guys, just given how close we are to the start of the season, they both are not with a team. There doesn't appear that a team is going to scoop them up. They could get an offer midway through the year if someone goes down with an injury. They could be candidates to come back on the little 1-year deal, go for another stab at a Super Bowl, help out the cause. I'd be more eager to see Brandon Carr return personally, just because he has versatility, he can play corner and safety. And given how close we are to the start of the season, I think that kind of lends itself to the whole argument of bringing in one of those two guys that is familiar with your system. You bring in a Brandon Carr or even a Tony Jefferson. They know this defense. They not only know, they played here just last year. There's not going to be any sweeping major changes to the style this defense plays from 2019 to 2020. Especially after they had so much success in 2019. I mean, they were arguably one of the best in franchise history, and that's saying something for as good as a defensive team the Ravens have been for their entire, existence. Yeah, it would be nice, I guess, to just have someone come in who's familiar. You don't have to worry about them getting up to speed, learning the playbook. Sticking with the topic of free agency, this was a rumor circulating again this week, and you want to talk about a guy that surprisingly doesn't have a home right now with 2 weeks to go until the start of the season. Jadeveon Clowney still doesn't have a home. Probably one of the biggest stories of this offseason, a pass rusher of his caliber not being on a team right now with the start of the season approaching. And rumors are circulating again. Tony Pauline of Pro Football Network, very vocal this week, saying, I don't know, some podcast or something, he said, quote, "A lot of people in the league believe that in the end, he's going to end up with the Baltimore Ravens." He goes on to say, Clowney right now, the belief is he's just going to sit out of training camp because he doesn't like training camp. He had an issue with training camp when he was with Houston. He's going to wait until the end of training camp unless someone blows him away with a huge contract. That's a weird quote right there. But the point here, the Ravens are being connected, floated around there with Jadeveon Clowney. We are just weeks away from the start of the season. I don't see how a free agent, not just Clowney, any free agent right now has any leverage, especially Clowney, who has seemingly been holding out for a big deal. He wants that big pass rusher deal that a lot of his fellow pass rushers around the league have received. He wants the same thing. He's a recognizable name. He's been hyped up since he came into the league. He's not a nobody, but he hasn't gotten the contract. So at this point, he's not getting the big deal, at least not this year. And this is such an interesting situation because he's at risk right now of, if he doesn't find a team in 2020, which would just be insane, but we're 2 weeks away. Like, nobody, why hasn't he been signed up until this point? I mean, you would think a guy like him is going to be on a team come week one. It would just be unfathomable to not see him on a team. But we're getting closer and closer to that being a reality. And if he, for some reason, misses either the entire year of 2020, the entire 2020 season, or maybe he doesn't sign with a team until a couple weeks into the season, he doesn't get a full year, obviously had no training camp time, didn't get any reps in with his new team. It's going to take him a little while to get adjusted, get up to speed with the new defense. He's putting himself in a bad spot because going into 2021, he will prospectively, because I'm assuming whatever deal, if he signs a deal this year, it'll be like a 1-year deal. I don't see a team just being like, oh, hey, yeah, here's that 5-year deal you wanted for max money. That's not going to happen. He's going to have to probably sign a 1-year deal, play through 2020, and then start again in 2021 looking for that mega money. And it's not the situation he wanted to be in, but that's kind of the reality, because if he misses even a little bit of time this year, he's really just hurting his chances for big money in 2021. And I think that scenario is sort of building towards this opportunity for the Ravens or another Super Bowl contender to come in and scoop him up. Because if you're Clowney, your back's against the wall here. You cannot miss time. Recent history would show this. Any player that has missed an entire year, whether it's because of injury, whether it's because of a contract dispute, whether it's because of whatever, a holdout, whatever the reason is for missing a year, Le'Veon Bell, it doesn't work out for you in the end. It just doesn't. Like, you don't get Le'Veon Bell ended up signing with the Jets for less money than he originally wanted. The only one who's really seen holding out work was, I guess, Zeke. But the Cowboys clearly really wanted him. He held out, only missed, the preseason and training camp. He still played the full regular season. So that, I'm not really counting that because he didn't miss any regular season time. But it was still a holdout, so you can throw it in there to the side. Point is, it's not just holdouts, it's injuries. Whatever it is, if you miss significant time like that, going into the next year, this league moves so fast. Like, you can be one of the best players in the league at your position, but it is not a good look when you've got that gap in your career. You didn't play for a full year. Because the reasons for not playing, there's no good reason for not playing. What is your reason for not playing? I mean, I don't know. If somebody decided to walk away from the game for personal reasons, you could say, all right, well, that was a good thing. He didn't play this year because there was stuff going on in his family, and he walked away from the game for a year, and now he's back. Sure, that's fine. But for the most part, if a player misses a year, it's because they're holding out of a contract. It's because they're way too stubborn in free agency. They're waiting on this big deal and they don't get it. Or they had a season-ending injury. All three of those are negatives as far as general managers are concerned. So, yeah, Clowney's just not in a good spot right now. And the closer we get to the season, he's got to start weighing his options. And I think he's going to look around and realize, I got to sign a 1-year deal. I can make pretty good money on that 1-year deal. And then I got to ball out, though. Got to stay healthy, got to ball out. And then maybe going into next year, under normal circumstances, normal free agency, I'll get the bigger contract that I want. But right now I got to sign a 1-year deal. Where am I going to go? I want to go somewhere where I can succeed. I want to go somewhere where I can be in the spotlight. I want to go somewhere where my name's going to be mentioned a lot, and I'm going to get the opportunity to rack up a lot of sacks and make a lot of splash plays and just build up that resume for free agency again next year. Why not a Super Bowl contending team, a Super Bowl favorite like the Ravens? A team, the Ravens, sure, they added Calais Campbell, Derek Wolfe. Calais Campbell, an exceptional pass rusher. You got Judon coming back on the franchise tag. There's plenty of room for Jadeveon Clowney right now. There's plenty of room. You could plug him in right away. Easily. There's no hoops to jump through for the Ravens. I think, and again, it's still, to me, the way I'm observing this, it's speculation. It sounds like this quote from Pauline. It just seems like people around the league are like, well, yeah, that would make sense. The Ravens seem like a good fit. But I don't know if there's anything concrete there. It just seems like an educated guess because they're going off of the same thing that I just said. Clowney's going to need to go with a 1-year deal. The Ravens are a Super Bowl contender. Why not sign a 1-year deal with the Ravens? You're immediately going to come in, play alongside Matt Judon, Calais Campbell, 2 other serious pass rush threats. Can't block all 3 of you. Somebody's going to get through. Somebody's going to get through on any given play, so you're going to have a chance to rack up some sacks, and you're going to have a chance to win a Super Bowl. Why not? Where else would you want to go? I mean, only other place you would want to go is another serious playoff contender. You're not going to go to a rebuilding team that, even if there is some bad team out there, a bad defense that really needs a pass rusher and might pay you a little bit more money, why would you go there? There's just it's going to be a miserable year. So you might as well go to a team like the Ravens or another Super Bowl contender. I'll be honest with you, I don't really think Clowney's worth the money. Let's get that out of the way right now. Like, I would welcome him coming in here on a 1-year deal. I trust the Ravens to get a good deal done with him. If they were to get one done, it would be very advantageous, very team-friendly. But I also know they won't sign him long-term. There's no way. They see the same thing I do. There's another team out here in the league that will give him that money, no doubt. The Ravens should not be that team. Clowney, he's overrated. He's good. He's talented. I would like his talents in Baltimore for the right price. But if I'm a GM, I'm not even entertaining giving him a big contract. I'm just not. I mean, what is it? Everyone says that he doesn't have double-digit sack. Been in the league since 2014. Didn't play much then. It was injuries right off the gate, if I'm not mistaken. 2015 and 9 starts, he had 4.5 sacks. That's not too shabby. 2016, he had 6 sacks in 14 games. 9.5 in 2017 in a full season. 9 in 2018, and then 3 last year with Seattle in 11 starts, 13 total games. So, yeah, numbers down in terms of the pass rush there. Closest he came was 2017 with 9.5 sacks. So, yeah, there's 2 years in a row, 2017, 2018, 9 sacks, 9.5 sacks. He doesn't have double digits. Is that the end of the conversation? No. I mean, it's not good. Like, if this guy is an elite pass rusher, these numbers aren't great. To me, the bigger thing to me is not just the numbers, it's the context of these numbers. You played on the other end of a defensive line from J.J. Watt your entire time in Houston. You played alongside J.J. Watt, who is regarded as one of the best defensive players of this era. You have to double team him. You have to. Unless you have an elite Hall of Fame offensive lineman, you have to double team J.J. Watt. Leaving Jadeveon Clowney, a very talented pass rusher, a very coveted draft pick, first overall pick in 2014. Yeah, very coveted, very highly touted, coming out of, South Carolina? And you're telling me this guy didn't rack up double-digit sacks at all, playing alongside J.J. Watt all those years? It's not a good look. It's just not. And sacks are only part of the equation. It's edge setting, it's run stopping, it's a bunch of things. It's not just sacks, but I'm sorry. When I'm looking at the pass rush numbers, it's not looking good for me. And it's not looking good enough for me to say, yep, let me give Jadeveon Clowney elite pass rush money. I'm just not doing it. So I think I talked about Clowney way too much there, but I'm going to move on. It's just what a weird messed up year. But speaking of weird and messed up years, let's talk about the Orioles. It doesn't get much weirder than this. So Orioles are through 31 games now. They lost last night to the Blue Jays in the opener of that series, but we'll call this a little mid-season review for the Orioles, halfway through the 60-game season, and it has just been absolutely weird, just the way the season's been played with the coronavirus stuff, putting stuff on hold. Now this week we've got games that have been postponed because of protests, so it's something new every week. Something new is standing in the way of games being played and stuff like that, and throw in a couple rain delays that you're always going to have every year, and it's just a mess. So we'll see if every team ends up playing their full slate of 60 games. But as far as the Orioles are concerned, but at the 30-game mark going into this Blue Jays series, they were the 9th seed in the American League. They're right there. They're right there. They are in the 9th seed. 8 teams will make it from the American League to the postseason. The Orioles are right there. The season is halfway over, and they are in a playoff race. That is nuts. Going into this weekend series, 2nd in the American League in team batting average, 3rd in the American League in hits. Anthony Santander is absolutely in the MVP conversation for the American League. If he comes close to keeping up his pace, he will definitely receive votes at the end of the year. I'm not saying he's going to win it. Just too many talented guys in the American League. Mike Trout's always going to have his name in the convo. Jose Abreu's tearing it up right now. Tons of great players in the American League. But Santander is an all-around player. He's got a WAR of 1.5 through 30 games. Last year, in 93 games, he had a WAR of 1.3. So he's just tearing it up right now. Tied for, I don't know if this still stands. I guess some guys hit some home runs last night, but he has 10 home runs, second to only Jose Abreu. I don't know if anyone else is up there with Abreu with 11, 12 home runs right now, but he was also 6th in the American League in slugging percentage, Anthony Santander was. So, yeah, I'm thinking halfway through the year, this is legit. It's only 60 games. If this was a regular season and we were 30 games in and we were coming up on, I guess, 60 games in, you're around the All-Star break. If this was a normal 162-game season, Anthony Santander would be on his way to getting an All-Star nod. And he wouldn't be the only Oriole. I mean, if this was a normal season and the Orioles were keeping this pace that they are right now in a regular 162-game season, they might be sending more than just the one required representative to the All-Star game. Severino would be in the starting catcher conversation. He might not make it on name recognition, but the numbers are undeniable. Hanser Alberto, absolutely, and definitely Santander. Jose Iglesias, too. I mean, you might get him in on name recognition if he didn't miss significant time with an injury. He's back now, thankfully, DHing last night. Orioles definitely need his bat back. You step back and you say, oh, man, there's been, last night included, a 10th inning loss to the Blue Jays. Randall Grichuk gets him again. Walk-off home run. My God, can we stop pitching to this guy? I mean, how many times do you have to get beat by one player throughout an entire season and not realize, all right, stop pitching to him? Whether it's Mookie Betts when he was still with the Red Sox, wrecked the Orioles, just absolutely teed off at Camden Yards. Gleyber Torres last year tore up the Orioles pitching. And apparently this year, Randall Grichuk. It's always a guy in the division. It's always a guy that you're going to have to face way too many times in the year. It's always a guy you can't avoid. He's always going to be there. It's like that bully in the schoolyard. You can't hide from him. He's always there. And that's Randall Grichuk this year, apparently. He's gonna have the Orioles number all year. So it's always somebody. Next year it'll be a Rays player. That we had a Red Sox player, a Yankees player, a Blue Jays player. Next year, take your pick. A Rays player is just gonna tee off against the Orioles. That's how it works. So for as many disappointing losses as there's been, like last night, you go back to the beginning of the year, they should have won that game against the Yankees. Severino hits the go-ahead home run in the 8th inning. You immediately give it right back to Aaron Judge in the 9th, lose that game. They lost the game in extra innings on a Dwight Smith Jr. base running error. They lost games because Pat Valaika can't play shortstop. They lost games, defensive errors, base running, just for every reason. Pitching collapsing, the bullpen choking, whatever reason you can think of, they lost the game because of it. And it's so disappointing because you look at a couple of those and you're like, well, man, they could have won those and they could easily be at 500 right now, or maybe a game or two above 500. But at the end of the day, I got to sit back and remind myself here that they're 14-17, and it would have been great if they could have won a couple of those games and they weren't so disappointing, but at least they're in these games. I mean, look at last year. How many times did the Orioles just get blown out? And the game was over after 3-4 innings. I mean, the starter would get absolutely blown up. The bullpen's been taxed from day one. There's no way they're going to come in and stop the bleeding. It's just a never-ending cycle. It sucks. It sucked last year. They just got the doors blown off like every night. The game was over after 3-4 innings, and we were watching 6-7 innings of meaningless baseball every night, just waiting until the game was over. This year, that's not the case, whether it's because of the offense or the bullpen puts it together for one night, or you get a nice start from a guy like Alex Cobb or Tommy Milone. They put the pieces together. The offense has some clutch hits late in the game. Whatever it is, they're in these games, and they're within 2-3 runs. If they're down, if they're losing, they're within 2 or 3 runs. They're within striking distance. They're in an area where they can get a couple guys on base and hit a home run and tie things up. I mean, they were down 3-2 last night. In the 8th inning, Renato Nunez comes back, breaks out of his little slump. He's a streaky hitter, hits a solo shot to tie the game up, end up going to extra innings. This team just, they find a way. I mean, the top of the 10th. Rio Ruiz starts on second base. Cedric Mullins leads off, lays down a bunt. He's just a bunting machine right now. You got to let him bunt in that situation. Lays down a perfect bunt, moves the runner over, but then Hanser Alberto comes up, gets a single, sends him home. Don't even have a sacrifice out. The Orioles couldn't put any more runs across, but they end up going into the bottom half of the inning. You throw the closest thing you have to a closer on this team is Cole Salser, goes out there in the bottom of the 10th. Guy gets on base. Randall Grichuk hits a walk-off home run. I mean, it just can't make this up. So it sucks. It's annoying. We've seen it way too many times this year, the Orioles losing in typical Orioles fashion, but there's been just as many, if not more, exciting wins where it's like, oh my God, how did they pull that off? I mean, was that one win against the Phillies where their infielder tripped over the mound and missed an easy pop-up, an infield pop-up, their outfielder diving for a ball that he should not have dove for, and Austin Hayes hits an inside-the-park home run to help win that game. What a season it's been, 30 games through, and it surely will be an exciting 30-game finish. And I was talking to somebody the other day. I said this, and I've been saying this all year. I've talked to my family about it. Anyone who's an Orioles fan, I've been saying this. With the way the postseason is set up this year, every team, no one gets a bye. 1 seed faces the 8 seed in a 3-game series. 3 games. I think I ranted about this on the podcast a couple weeks ago. It's only a 3-game series. I don't care who the 1 seed is. If it's the Yankees, who absolutely have the Orioles number, you don't want to see the Orioles in a 3-game series. You just don't. Because, yes, on paper, should you win those 2 games, yes. They will be the betting favorite, no doubt about it. But if I'm the New York Yankees, who is not just favored, expected, because in a typical 162-game season, even if you have a good year, if you start to go cold, if the bats just aren't firing on all cylinders by the time October rolls around, and your pitching's having a little bit of issues, and you run into a team who maybe isn't that good, snuck in with a wild card, won the wild card game, now they're playing a full series, a best of 5, and their bullpen's hot. Their bats are hot. They're clearly not as good of a team. They haven't been for a full 162 games, but it's all about who's hot at the right moment. We've seen that. That's how you win in the postseason. So this year, the Yankees are not only favored, they are expected to go to the World Series. Anything short of a World Series appearance this year, ignoring some context that if there's significant injuries, I guess anything less than a trip to the ALCS will be a colossal disappointment for the Yankees this year. If I'm them, if I have all those expectations, I don't get a bye. I'm only playing a 3-game series, and I have to play the Orioles, a team who shouldn't even be here, a team who shouldn't even be in the postseason, a hodgepodge of, an island of misfit toys with Renato Nunez and Anthony Santander and Hanser Alberto and Pedro Severino and all these guys that are just rejects from other teams, whether it's Rule 5 or waiver claims, going up against Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Gleyber Torres, all those great hitters they have there, all those guys that they're paying big-time money, Garrett Cole, who they paid big-time money to, and you got to face the Orioles in a 3-game series. I don't want that. I'm not messing around with that. The game of baseball is way too unpredictable for me, if I'm the Yankees, to feel comfortable going up against the Orioles in a 3-game series. I don't care if they sweep the Orioles this year in the regular season. Even more reason to be nervous going into the postseason. They have everything to lose. They will be going into a series, if this happened, against an Orioles team that just has nothing to lose, can go in there, play loose, play like the team of misfit toys, the team of renegades that they are, and just have fun. We're not supposed to be here. It's a 3-game series, expanded playoffs. There's no fans in the stands, for God's sake. This is going to be such a weird experience for postseason baseball. And the Orioles have nothing to lose. They're playing with house money at that point. The Yankees, the pressure is on them. And if something weird happens and they lose game 1, panic is going to set in. Panic is going to set in. I don't care who they're. I'm picking on the Yankees at this point. They don't even have to play the Orioles. The Orioles don't make it. Even if they do, it just the matchup. Maybe the Yankees aren't the 1 seed. Whatever it is. First round matchup. I don't care who they're playing. If I'm the Yankees, I am not happy about playing a 3-game series. I'm just not. It sucks. It's extremely unfair to a team that's spent all that money. But as a fan of the Orioles, you're not going to get any tears from me. I'm going to be laughing my ass off if the Yankees get bounced in the first round by some dumb luck. I'm going to be extremely happy if that happens. But I digress. I will move on. Let's talk about the trade deadline. That's the last topic here because it is looming. It is just days away. We've seen some moves. Blue Jays made a move to add the starting pitcher Walker from the Mariners, I believe. That's a nice addition for them. I'm seeing here the Angels traded La Stella to the Athletics. So La Stella, an all-star. So, some big names getting moved, some big names on the move, but nothing blockbuster right now. And quite frankly, that's what I expected. I did not expect to see, multi-team trades and big, prospects getting dealt. I didn't see that in the cards in 2020. Take a step back for a second. Look at the situation teams are in 2020. We've had how many teams suffer a little COVID outbreak that required them to miss time? The Marlins, the Mets, the Cardinals, the Reds. Some missed way more time than others. Point is, the season has just been so unpredictable. When the whole Marlins thing happened, when the Cardinals thing happened, it was just met with nonstop criticism from the media and the fans saying, shut it down, shut the season down. If I'm a Major League Baseball owner, GM, whatever, I'm more in the know than the average fan. So if something was going to be happening, if a shutdown was coming, I think I'd be more in the know than the average fan. But still, seeing all this incessant, nonstop, anytime one player tests positive, seeing just a mass outpouring of people saying, shut it down, shut the season down, call it a day, pack it up. We never should have done this. I told you so. I told you so. You're an idiot. Blah, 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 blah. If I'm a GM, I'm not doing anything this year with my stuff that has value. I'm not unloading prospects. I'm not buying. If you're a team that's selling, maybe you can find some guys to sell, but I'm not selling any of my guys that in a typical year are definitely getting dealt. It's just there's too much uncertainty. Now look at this, and I'm not going to go too deep into this because I don't have notes prepared, and it's such a very politically charged topic, quite frankly. You had games not being played out of protest this week. That was as a result of what happened in the NBA. The Milwaukee Bucks, I'll keep this quick. The Milwaukee Bucks protested their game, refused to come out of the locker room. They canceled the game. They postponed it. The Milwaukee Bucks put together a team statement. They came together. They stood there as a team. They delivered a written address. They had all of that. But you have to acknowledge that there is a chain reaction here because the Bucks did it, and then the two other playoff games that day immediately, without hesitation, oh yeah, we're not playing either. Okay, fine. That immediately spreads to baseball. That immediately spreads to other sports. It's an extremely volatile situation. And if I'm a Major League Baseball GM and we got the trade deadline looming, I've already got COVID forcing teams to miss time. I've already got this nuisance of the coronavirus and this pandemic making the season already volatile. Now I've got games being missed out of protest. And in the NBA, there was even teams threatening that we're just going to shut down the entire league. We have a situation here where, the NBA has said they're coming back, but two teams did vote to pack up the season and stop. Had that happened, who's to say the same ripple effect wouldn't have spread through Major League Baseball, the NHL, and now all the seasons are packed up. If I'm a Major League Baseball GM at the trade deadline, COVID is threatening the season. Now protest is threatening the season being played. Why would I even consider approaching this trade deadline like a normal trade deadline? I don't care if you're in a position to buy. I don't care if you're in a position to sell. I'm not approaching this season like it's a normal trade deadline at all. So for the Orioles, you've got some guys that prospectively, based on how they're playing this year, could definitely be traded. Alex Cobb, Tommy Milone, some bullpen arms. Michael Givens looked pretty good overall. I think Miguel Castro, his stuff and the way he's performed overall, he's had his down spots, but his stuff is absolutely filthy when he's on his game. It's unhittable. So I think there's some teams out there that would certainly like those guys, and maybe there's others. Maybe there's some offensive players that could get dealt. But it just everything's too volatile right now for me as a GM to feel comfortable dealing and making business as usual. And I think we're going to see a more quiet trade deadline this year. That's not much of a hot take. We are still a couple days left here. Something could happen before Monday for the Orioles. I think if a player is going to be dealt on the Orioles, it would probably be Michael Givens or Tommy Milone. Givens still a couple of years left on his contract, but they've been trying to deal him for years now. He has had his name thrown around in the trade market for at least 2-3 years now. They haven't been able to find a trade partner, whether it's because Givens hasn't been that good or the offers weren't that good or whatever it is. Givens is finally looking as good as ever, quite frankly. Not as many years left on his deal, so a team, it's not, you're not bringing on a big contract at all. And Milone is obviously a 1-year deal. He was a minor league invite to start the year. I think he's on a minor league contract or something. So, a team with the way Malone's playing, you'd take a flyer on him. Orioles aren't going to get much of a return for Tommy Milone. Make no mistake. Might get a player to be named later, like they got for Richard Blyer. Might get a minor league player too. I don't know. Maybe you get like an Andrew Kashner type of thing last year where you had a couple of international, 17-year-old kids coming out of the Dominican Republic. You have no idea who they are. They're 17. They're not even adults yet. But maybe one day they end up being Ronald Acuna Jr. You don't know. They could end up being that. They could end up being, a perpetual AA player or a single A player. They might not even sniff AAA. You don't know. It's a lottery ticket. I've used that term many, many times. But if you're giving up a guy like Andrew Cashner, if you're giving up a guy like Tommy Malone, that's a decent enough return. I'll take that. So I could see those guys getting moved. I don't see Alex Cobb getting moved at all. Alex Cobb has looked great this year. He looks healthy. He looks like if this was a normal year, I think Alex Cobb would definitely get dealt. But he's still got years left, and the Orioles aren't in a position where they can sell low on him. They just aren't. They have to wait and bank on him being able to stay healthy going into 2021, being able to produce at least somewhat close to what he's doing right now, and then get dealt in a normal year where teams are like, yeah, I can take on, I'll be willing to give up serious prospects for Alex Cobb and actually get, post-trade deadline, however many starts out of him, and then maybe use him in the postseason. But right now, through 30 games, what are you going to get out of Alex Cobb or Tommy Malone? How many starts are you going to get out of them? 5, 6, maybe. I don't know. And then in the postseason, maybe you can use them. But that's just where I stand. I don't see Alex Cobb getting dealt. I don't really see any offensive players getting dealt. There's no pressure on the Orioles. No pressure on the Orioles to make a move at all. So I think Elias will be smart. If I had to guess, no moves will get done. At most, just one move for one of those guys, Givens or Malone. But we shall see. And that's going to do it for episode 117. Next week, obviously, going to be a lot of football talk as we are just... Week 1 will be on the horizon. I suppose we will be previewing that Week 1 matchup against the Browns. Thanks for listening, as always, guys. Really appreciate it. Just a quick plug again. If you have whatever platform you listen on, keep listening on it. Whatever you want to listen on, by all means. That's why we're spread. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We're on Apple. We're on SoundCloud. If you are a regular listener on any of those platforms and you haven't already subscribed, please do so. It would do us a lot of favors to subscribe on YouTube. It would do us a lot of good if you subscribed on SoundCloud, followed on SoundCloud, whatever it is, followed on Apple, followed on Spotify. That would do us a lot of good. So we appreciate you. I appreciate you as always. We'll be back next week with 118. Talk to you then.